all starts with a phone call. That dreaded phone call. And for me, I received that phone call on the 10th of April, 2020. At 5 o'clock that afternoon, my best friend, my biggest supporter, my most favourite person, my dad, he sadly passed away. That day, he took my heart with him. My mum and I, we lost her forever. We lost our best friend. And that is one day that we will never forget. The thought of waking up tomorrow and he won't be there. I won't get to see him again. See him smile. See him laugh. He won't be there at the kitchen table with his coffee, deciding what he's going to do with his day. Winding me and my mum up. Cracking one of his awful jokes. What I would do to hear one of those jokes again. The thought of tomorrow starting without him. It's unbearable. The pain just... it never leaves. People have said it gets easier. You learn to live with it. And maybe that's true. But the thought of tomorrow starting and he won't be there, it's just too much. It's too much.
When tomorrow starts without me, and I'm not there to see, if the sun should rise and find your eyes all filled with tears for me, I wish so much you wouldn't cry the way you did today, while thinking of the many things we didn't get to say. I know how much you love me, as much as I love you, and each time that you think of me, I know you'll miss me too. But when tomorrow starts without me, please try to understand that an angel came and called my name and took me by the hand and said my place was ready in heaven far above, and that I'd have to leave behind all those I dearly love. But as I turned to walk away, a tear fell from my eye. For all my life I'd always thought I didn't want to die. I had so much to live for, so much left yet to do. It seemed almost impossible that I was leaving you. I thought of all the yesterdays, the good ones and the bad. I thought of all the love we shared and all the fun we had. If I could relive yesterday, just even for a while, I'd say goodbye and kiss you, and maybe see you smile. But then I fully realized that this could never be, for emptiness and memories would take the place of me. And when I thought of worldly things I might miss come tomorrow, I thought of you, and when I did, my heart was filled with sorrow. But when I walked through heaven's gates, I felt so much at home. When God looked down and smiled at me from his great golden throne, he said, "This is eternity, and all I've promised you Today, your life on earth is past, but here life starts anew. I promise no tomorrow, but today will always last. And since each day is the same, there's no longing for the past.
I know that some people can say that their dad was the best dad in the world. They couldn't have asked for a better parent. But I can say that. Hand on heart, I can say that. My dad was my best friend. We did everything together. I spent more time with my dad than I would spend with my friends. I have so many different memories of my dad that I could talk about for hours. But the one place that always sticks in my mind, the one place that reminds me of my dad every day, is our local pub. It's a little backstreet pub called the Golden Lion. Not a lot of people from the area know about it, but people within our local village. It's a family pub. It's a community hub. It's another home to me. When I was 17, my dad came home one day and said he'd been offered to take over the Golden Lion as landlord. Well, you can imagine at 17, I was over the moon about it. But my mum, she had reservations. But within a couple of weeks, my dad and we decided to move in there, with my mum saying she wanted to stay at home because she couldn't live above a pub again after she did it when she was a child. But that pub has been in my life since. I still work there now. 12 years later, I am still there. That pub just... everything about it reminds me of him. And after we lost him, walking back in there, it was really hard. And it was something I said for a couple of weeks after he died, I don't think I ever can. I even texted my boss saying I can't do it and I'm gonna have to leave. But with the support of my dad's friends and my friends and the local community that drink in there, I did it, and I walked back in, and it was hard, but I did it, and I'm so glad I did. Because some days when I'm sitting there and I'm missing him and I just feel lost without him, I'll just go sit there. Even if it's on my own, or if it's, with family, or if it's with my boyfriend or whoever, I'll just go sit there and I'll have a minute and think about him. And I'll just laugh about all the little silly things he would do there. The one thing everybody says in that pub about my dad is, for some strange reason, he would leave half pints of mild everywhere. Only like a sip or two taken out of them, but you would find them everywhere. And apparently he was just testing the beer. Funny how you had to test it every day. Losing my dad was the hardest day of my life. My dad was my best friend. And unfortunately, he didn't fall ill. My dad suffered a major brain hemorrhage. The day he died, I was working in our local pharmacy at the time. I ran home for my dinner with him. He was off work because it was the pandemic and he had just been furloughed. We sat there, we had our dinner together, we laughed and joked about different things. And I gave him a big hug and a big kiss before I returned back to work. Later that evening, I received a text off a friend who's also my neighbour saying that there was an ambulance outside my house. I rang my house phone and my mum answered, and straight away she went, "Grace, it's Dad." I've never ran so quick in my life. When I got to my house and I opened my front door, the paramedics were working on my dad. And I remember him saying clearly as anything, "We've got a stable heartbeat, but we're not sure how long for." They quickly put my dad in the ambulance and they took him down, and obviously because of the pandemic we weren't allowed to go with him. So Mum and I waited at home for that phone call. It seemed like forever to wait for that phone call. I think I knew already but still. To hear that doctor say what had happened, and there was nothing they could do for him, that voice will never leave me. Hearing that doctor's voice on that phone, it'll never leave. Since losing my dad, it's been so hard, and the first couple of months, the first 12 months were a blur. I don't really remember anything. I miss him so much every day, and I do everything I can to get myself through. But I'm really fortunate to have such good friends by my side that were there every day and helped me as much as they could. And unfortunately, since losing my dad, 3 of my closest friends have suffered with their own grief. A mum, a family loved pet, and a granddad. And trying to be as good a friend to them as they were to me at my hard times, the one thing I noticed is how strong these people are. I'm really lucky to have such strong friends by my side. Sometimes they might not feel it, just like I didn't, but they really are. They have took something so negative and painful and something that still hurts every day, but they've used it to keep pushing themselves forward. And I think that's just something proud. There's something to be proud of in itself.
I don't know why. My heart is beating so fast. I guess talking about grief and talking about my mum can be sad, but also can be happy and relive happy memories. But talking about it out loud right now is making my heart beat out my chest for some reason. She was the best mum. And I know a lot of people say, I've got the best dad or I've got the best mum. But I honestly feel, to me, she was the best mum. She was my sidekick, my partner in crime, just like my best friend, somebody I could go to with any little thing. I'd ring her up just to talk about how long to boil an egg for. It's just that person that's always there. She was always really fun. You'd go there and just have a laugh. We'd generally just sat down and we'd just be laughing the whole time. That's kind of our relationship and what it was like. We just got on really, really well. I even remember going there and I'd always bring her something. Like I used to love coming around with some cake or some after eights, just something to, we could sit and eat together and have a cup of tea, because she'd always make a cup of tea. So she got diagnosed with cancer, and she got, I think it was stage 3 cancer, bowel cancer. Since she got diagnosed, we thought, she was going to be better, so they had to retest her to see if the chemo's worked and how much it's worked. And then that's when we found out it spread everywhere. 3 days or 2 days after my birthday, she called us all round. My sister was already there and she was like chain smoking, shaking, and I was like, I kind of had an idea and I was like, this isn't good. Right, just give me a minute, let's have a joke and a laugh. And I said, just tell me in a minute what your news is. Hoping and praying it's obviously all clear, but then she told us she had 6 to 9 months. So I burst into tears and I started crying, like, no, this can't be right, this can't be true, like, you're getting better, I thought you were having chemo. But obviously she wasn't getting better and we just hugged. I think the worst part was after that, she had to go to like a care home, somebody where she could be cared for, because obviously she was going to get worse. There was nothing much more that they can do for her, so I think the hardest part was watching her get sicker. Like not being able to stand by herself, not being able to go to the toilet by herself, and then losing her voice and she couldn't speak and couldn't eat, couldn't drink. I think that was like the hardest part. On October 31st, she just took her last breath. Obviously very, very hard. Grief is hard. I don't really know how I've coped with grief. but I don't feel like it gets easier. I feel like you just manage it. So I know I don't really cry, I don't really get upset in front of people, but I know when I'm by myself, like now, I will get upset talking about it, thinking about it. I did have a baby whilst my mum was ill, and she was 2 months old when my mum passed away. So she's been my biggest distraction and the best thing to ever happen to us and me, the family, because she's just obviously been there, and I've clung to her, she's clung to me, and she's made me feel better, if that makes any sense at all.
I was 10 years old, coming from school, and I remember getting picked up by my tide. When I arrived at home, my dad was by the door and my mum was smiling and said that they had to take me somewhere that afternoon. We started to walk up the road, just around the corner. When we arrived, here come this little dog. I immediately fell in love with him, and Dad made the decision that we were bringing him home. My first memory of Toby was just how happy he was all the time just to see me. We would go on many, many walks, but one stuck in my head where we ended up walking up to Monera, up to the lead mines, and we sat on a bench together and just took in the view. But he was my best friend. We went everywhere together. He was literally my everything. I am now 27 years old, and he has given me so many years of happiness. Even if I was down or happy, he was just there the whole time at the side of me. Sadly, last September, my dad texted me in work to say that Toby had taken a turn. When I arrived at the house, he was sadly on his side. When I picked him up and held him in my arms, I realised that it was time for him to go. He had literally was at the end of his life. We made a decision there and then to have him put down. It was the most hardest thing I've ever had to watch. The lady asked, obviously, if I wanted to say goodbye, and I did my goodbyes in the car. But then I couldn't really go anywhere near him or touch him after I realised that obviously he was gone. I walked out of that place absolutely heartbroken. Just to come home, see his bed empty, or see my other dog act completely different because he'd also had lost his best friend. Losing him has been the worst thing that has happened to me, and I feel so lost without him. Every day is hard, and things have gone a bit better since losing him. But everything, when I take Todd out for a walk, if I just have a little cuddle on the bed with Todd, I just think of Toby and how affectionate and how much I loved him. I will always remember my little Toby, and I miss him and love him so dearly.
My granddad, his name is Bob, passed away on the 7th of April. He was our head of our family, and we always looked up to him for anything, any advice, anything that needed fixing. He was a mechanic, and he had a garage in the garden. I remember coming home from school, growing up, and he'd be there, fixing cars, his favourite thing to do. He had all the tools going. They're still there now, and we can't move them. He loved his garage, he built it himself. I remember coming home and seeing him doing all sorts of things, trying to fix things in his own way. I got plenty of memories of him. I remember his 80th birthday. We had a little party for him. He was in our garden and he decided to pick up the hula hoop of mine and start hula hooping. I thought it was great. That was a great memory. I've got a great video of him and I go back to look at it very often. It really makes me happy. I stayed with him till the very end when he was really ill. He was in hospital and we visited every day, 2-3 times a day. And we could slowly see him fading away. He wanted to stay, I think, as he knew we were there. But when we left one time, that was the last time we'd seen him. He was fast asleep the last time we'd seen him. He looked very peaceful, breathing deeply. He looked really at rest, and that's my last memory of him. I wish he'd been at home in his favourite place, which is the armchair in front of the telly, but he wasn't, and there's nothing we can do about that. But I hope he was comfortable. It was a really hard time to lose somebody you love. So it was during COVID and we couldn't go and see him as often as we wanted to. When I did lose him, I felt every emotion under the sun, and I'd never felt anything like it before. But I'd never lost anybody before. It was my first time going through grief. I just didn't know what to do with all my emotion. I was so lucky to have the family I do. My mum and my nana, we all stuck together. We often talk about him and things that made us laugh, things that made him laugh. I often see him laughing in my mind, which cheers me up, really helps me get through. I often go to places that he liked to go to, such as the beach or walk along the front in Penzance. I like to go to the places that he liked to go to and think that he's with me. I do think that he's with me. There's little messages and little signs I think, oh, that's Grandad. I wasn't sure how to handle my grief at first. I imagined it to be such a negative experience, which it was. But there's also positive parts that come with it. We pulled together as a family. We communicated more. We were there for each other. Definitely strong as a team. We like to go through old photos. We like to talk about memories. My way of handling my grief is to talk about him. Talk about the things he liked to do. Talk about the things he liked and what he didn't like, actually. Well, that makes me laugh. He was a great man. He was really strong. And he was a huge part of our family. I'll never forget him.
And even though, unfortunately, all of us have had to suffer this grief, now we can do it together. And we help each other through the bad days. Having each other to support each other, it really helps. And although I wish none of us have had to suffer this pain, the fact that we can do it together and we get through it together, that's great. And it's still really hard, but we all understand what we're all going through, and we'll always be here for each other. Grief is such a hard thing to experience and to push yourself through. And I think a lot of people thought that I would hit rock bottom and wouldn't be able to get out of bed and help myself. But I did, and I've achieved a lot since losing my dad. A lot of things I didn't even know I was able to achieve, and I'd like to think I've done him proud. Going to university, pursuing my photography career, and I think I've done quite well. I also finished a project that he started before he sadly passed. In our local park we have our cenotaph, and he wanted to put lights around it so that people could see it through the day and through the night. And with help of our local community and my local council and friends, my family, We raised all the money, and as a community project, we had the lights placed at the cenotaph. And although everybody says it was me that did that, it was him that started it. I just finished it for him. I'd like to think that I'm doing well and I'm pushing myself through every day, and everyone says that they're really proud of me. But I only do it for him. The love that, we shared, my dad and I use that every day to push me every day to achieve everything I have and everything I hope to achieve in future. And if it wasn't for him, I wouldn't be the person I am today without him. Of course, my mum has a bit to do with that, but it's my dad as well.
Cruising round Stone Plains, Springsteen loud, Liverpool LC's doing you proud. Always used to say, beat the man in the grave. Born is big and dear, but now there's hell to pay. Still the last of the big time jokers. Watch your language even if you wear the smokers. Memories linger on like alpine sitting idly. Terry local hero knitting circle. You're always there to me. After I was drinking 41 shots, Tina Turner karaoke, top of the pops.